I'm just thinking about how I'm so allergic to everything that's around
Oh no.
here now.
Are your allergies flaring up?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh.
They know it's no different than it has been all day.
Okay.
But just
Sorry to
like
hear.
the irony of like wanting to be out in the garden.
That seed project, is that ongoing or did you move on to the more research on air pollution and whatnot?
No, it's forever
Okay,
going.
that's
I
good.
mean, I think forever going as something I do in life, as an art project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see. It's still ongoing.
Yeah.
But it really informs every other project. So, like the air pollution project came from thinking about ideas through thinking about seeds and plants and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So they're
Right.
all, it's sort of like, I didn't always think of it this way, but now I really think of it as like the main focus of my practice, and everything else stems from it.
Okay.
Even
So,
if seeds aren't involved or plants aren't involved. Also, things like it really gets me thinking about time in different ways,
oh yeah,
seasons.
regrowth and whatnot.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, ultimately, climate change.
Mm-hmm.
All of those different elements of thinking that are related to thinking about seed saving.
Mm.
Often I'll like hone in on one, and that becomes one project. Like the air pollution project sort of was really focusing more in on certain politics and issues related to climate change. But another project that I'm working on right now is focusing more in on food security. So thinking about the way that, not that everyone planting their own seeds is going to solve the issues of food security, but how it might change the way we think about food supply chains
Right.
and things like that as well.
Okay.
I feel like our timing to have this conversation today is so perfectly weirdly timed in so many ways because it's spring equinox.
Mm-hmm.
The air pollution today is incredibly bad. I've been monitoring it all
Oh
day,
yeah.
which maybe has something to do with the fact that it's warming up a bit.
Right.
And then there was a new IPCC report about climate change and like how long we have
Oh.
that just came out today as well. So it's sort of like all of these
Didn't know that.
perfectly aligned things.
It's really funny how, as years go by, we know more and more about the issue and we're doing more and more research, but less and less people are inclined to believe it. Like there's more and more conspiracies
Yeah.
nowadays. A lot of people say like, oh, well, they said the world was going to end like in whatever years, 10 years ago, and then they said the same thing like before then. Yeah, they always make that argument that like people have been saying the same thing for many years and that like the world's not going to end and that people need to chill out. But we don't know that, right? Like we don't, right? Like,
Yeah, and the evidence is in complete opposition to that,
mm-hmm.
actually. Yeah, I mean, I think this is really just has so much to do with information, too, right? And like how information disseminates.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of increase in denialism is really by design. Like if you start to, and there have been numerous studies on this, so it's not just like something that is an opinion. But if you look at who's disseminating information that is very much against the act of wanting to do anything, it often is industries that are ultimately going to lose money
Right.
from these changes.
Of course.
So it's deliberate, and we know that propaganda works just throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's hard because we're in a moment where we're really seeing like the degree to which it works and how actually simple it is to
Mm-hmm.
change people's beliefs and then how hard it is to change them back.
Mm.
Yeah, it's troubling for sure.
Right.
I think this is also why I'm really interested in like the complexity of these things. It's not just like for me like thinking about air pollution or just thinking about plants, but like the way all these things are related, like economics, politics, social issues, and how they all intertwine, because it's really complicated stuff, right? Like there's no easy solutions.
Right.
Because I studied environmental biology
Mm-hmm.
in my undergrad, which was in the 1990s.
Oh wow.
So yeah, like being introduced to these concepts then at that point of my life, and like the profound impact that had on my thinking and like the way that I like started to relate to the world and to others and to think about things. But then thinking about how across that time this issue has become even more and more politicized than it was then is very strange to watch, for sure, because it's pretty bizarre. It's like pretty absurd that all of this information that we knew, you know, when I was like 17 or 18, like has not like made any movement forward, really. I am a media artist, and for me that's really about thinking about information and how information travels and is disseminated. And I think a lot of that interest comes from sort of witnessing this politicization of especially environmental issues over time. And seeing the power of that, really, which is pretty scary. Like with the billboard projects, I think it's both trying to like work with the material that the media work with, like propaganda, billboards, and then thinking about ways of sparking conversations with strangers. So I think about it like a participatory project, but one that I have very much less sort of, I don't know, like sense of for how it'll go. So I work with text a lot in my work, and this is part of the draw for me, is like how to start conversations with others. And then with billboard projects, it's really about like how to do that in a way where I'm not physically present. I have very little control over how people come to the work, right? They might be driving by, they might be walking, and how much information can be shared that sparks some kind of conversation internally with another person. Separate the seeds from the flour into the tray, and then there's this bag here that you can put the leftover flour material. But basically you just like run your finger over it and all of the seeds will fall out.
Do you like eating sunflower seeds?
Yeah, I do. There's like one year where I tried harvesting my own, and it's a lot of work to separate them to be able to, like, because you have to boil them in salt, but really it's separating them from all the plant material that I am not so great at. I'm working on this project right now with this group in Winnipeg called Window Winnipeg, where there are 22 of us growing lettuce seed over the winter indoors.
Okay.
And then there's like prompts and things to think about. And the project, this is kind of the second iteration of it, but in this version, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about food security and supply chain, especially, you know, mainly because of climate change, but especially because lettuce is a really great indicator crop. Like, if you recall at the start of the pandemic, lettuce was one of those vegetables that was really quickly turned back over into the earth, and not when supply chains kind of fell apart. And the price of it has been going up so much compared to other vegetables as well. And a lot of that has to do with where our lettuce comes from. So in Canada, like 70 to 80% of our lettuce comes from California. And they've been having, you know, like weird snow and floods and all of this stuff. So those crops are particularly like indicative of things to come in with other crops in the future. Anyway, so it's been really fun to like grow lettuce and think through all these things along with other people, like at a distance. Everyone's in the prairies. And then we share postcards and things back and forth as well.
Trying to connect the thoughts and everything about air pollution with seeds and plant life. How does air pollution affect plant growth and like either, you know, short term or long term?
There's various ways to kind of approach thinking about it. So like one of them is just looking at the chemicals that are in air pollution. Plants are also like a really great indicator to know what your air quality is like. So that project that I worked on is really sort of about how difficult it is to actually visualize air pollution. Like, you know, like I was saying, today is a really bad air day. So let's take a look at what it's at right now. Right now where we're sitting, there's an AQI reading of 123, which is extreme. So like 20 is okay, and we're at 123. So like it's really bad, but like when you look, it's like a beautiful day. And so it's really hard to like, unless you are sensitive to it, which I am, so often like I can feel like something's wrong.
Wow.
without even looking at the app. But most people can't. Plants are like a way to help visualize that. So like certain plants, the leaves will start to become damaged and almost like sores or broken. So you can see, and that the leaves will change color. But then on the other side of it, like increased carbon dioxide in the air can be really not necessarily good for plants because it can be extreme and cause problems.
Yeah.
But they can tend to grow bigger because there's more of it. My name is Christina Battle, and I'm a media artist based in Edmonton, Alberta. So I refer to myself as a media artist, and by that I mean I'm really interested in thinking about some of those structural, formal elements of the term media, so time, space, and information. So I work across a number of different formats: film, video, websites, participatory practice, essentially things that take time. And I think it's really important to me because I'm really interested in thinking about how things change, how media moves and is disseminated from one individual to another, and to conversation as a strategy for thinking about information. You know, I didn't grow up going to art galleries or museums really. I never took an art class beyond elementary school. So I sort of stumbled through it first through community. So first by sort of becoming a part of an experimental film community and discovering that artistic practice was a thing in a way. And then I think it just really clicked for me and made a lot of sense because I think I do see a lot of relationships between thinking about the sciences and the art in terms of like starting off the questions, coming up with hypotheses about how you think that thing is going to work or how you think that question might be answered, and then spending time experimenting and figuring out how to do that thing. The thing that sort of gravitated me more toward art and artistic practice is really that opportunity to like embrace failure and errors and mistakes, not having to follow so many rules or structures, and really maybe even more appropriately to actually like be able to break the rules as a part of structure.
What do you think about the Art From Here project as a platform and as a way of networking or creating community?
I think it's really great. I think there's probably elements of the program that I also am not aware of, maybe necessarily. So maybe there's not always a public facing element to it. But I think like that in itself is what's really important about it. Like putting artists in touch with one another to get to know one another. A lot of the artist talks that I've been to have been opportunities to get to know more about what everyone's doing, even though we might feel like we know each other or are part of community or part of the same like artistic sector, but really don't often have opportunities to know like what actually one another are thinking about or doing aside from exhibitions. I sort of feel like even though I'm from Edmonton, I feel like I'm like really new actually because I've been away for so long. So for me, it's been really great timing also to like get to know so many artists. Where otherwise it would have probably taken a really long time, if ever, to be able to do so.